So it's just going to be a really short flight today. We're just flying to Robertson Airport, 10 minutes. So let me just start the engine. I don't have any GoPros with me, but I'll just switch the camera, just show an engine start. We have the power on, you have the gyros all spun up. And so, they're going to focus. Here we go. They're waiting for it. You gotta, just like AccuSim, you pull, you hear the fuel suck in, and you push. Pull, hear it suck in, push. I'm going to do about 5 primers. This engine just loves primer when it's cold. And here we go. Recognize this for AccuSim? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's a little bit, it's bound. That's on there. Okay. All right, clear. The mags are on. And let's go. Really tight. There it goes. Really nice. That's really nice. Nice quick startup. I love this engine. It's getting close to TBO, but this engine is just running so great. And we have the engine monitor here as well. Love this engine. Robertson, and really just here to put some tape on the left wing fuel cap and just to do a couple little checks. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about what stands out about the Aerostar. Now, the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this plane, other than that beautiful company logo on the airplane, is this thing needs a cleaning. I mean, really badly. I mean, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's just needs to be cleaned. So we're gonna need a day of good weather and an afternoon to get it all cleaned out. I wanted to show you something that many people don't know about the Aerostar. First of all, this aircraft was designed to be a jet. See that mid-wing design? There's a reason why most airplanes don't put the wings to the fuselage. Now, one reason that comes to mind is you got to sit someplace, right? It's going to go right through with the pilot sitting. The Aerostar is a jet, essentially, with props. And the mid-wing design was done so they could hang jet engines under the wing. My understanding is somewhere along the development line, they decided not to go with jets. The market wasn't supporting it, and they put props on it. So this airframe is designed to go 100 knots faster than it goes right now. It was designed to withstand structural stresses of a jet, which gives it this tremendous solid feeling. Now, Ted Smith designed this aircraft a little differently. He actually put most of the structural strength in the skin, similar to a composite airplane. So you don't have as much of the framing and the heavy bracing. You just make the skin much thicker, and that adds structure. And it's all flush riveted. There are no rivets that pop out of here. The whole thing is flush riveted. So let me go over here to the Comanche. And the Comanche is a solid airplane. This is a solid airplane. Some people would say it's a real airplane. And I don't want to be, pointing out any other planes. But just watch. I'm going to take this panel here. Look. Hear that? And just to press it. Now you can don't know if the lighting's not getting it really well, but you can hear it. It's oil canning. You can oil can. You're not going to go walking on the wing. Though it's pretty strong, you're not going to walk in that wing. And just come over here and listen to this sound. I mean, you can't oil can the Aerostar anywhere. Now, you're not going to walk on the wing of an Aerostar, but you could. If you walk on the wing of any airplane, you walk along, where you see rivets, because there's a solid joist or brace in there. So that's the first thing that I think about with the Aerostar, is just how solid this airplane is. And it feels solid. The first time I stepped inside of an Aerostar, my first thought was, oh my God, this thing feels like a rock. Just the way the floor was made and everything. I guess the very next thing you think about when you see an Aerostar is just how aerodynamic it is. Just take the engine cowling, for example. Ignore the alcohol and the tape on the wing, right? But just look at that. Look at that shape. That is a beautiful shape. It's very tightly cowled. There's a reason why this is the fastest production twin, and it's the shape. It's all about the shape. There are other things incorporated into the Aerostar design as well. I'll just go over here. I don't have a ladder, but a lot of airplanes, you come with aftermarket gap seals and things like this. Well, there you go. The Aerostar already has gap seals. But let's go back here. Okay. A design I absolutely love. Again, very forward thinking. Now, this is the engine, obviously, and those are the cylinders, and that's where the air comes in for cooling. But you notice many airplanes, you look at the front and you'll see, let's just take a look at this guy over here. You have, beautiful airplane, by the way, you have air intakes. On my old Cherokee, I had air intakes in the bottom. And then you have the cooling there, and then you have, I don't know, I guess that's I don't know if that's the main air intake. It probably is. Let's see. Yeah. So you have the engine cooling and the air intake usually separate, but the Aerostar did something that was, I don't know if it's the first time it was done or whether he copied another design. This is so brilliant. There's no air intake you see here, right? There's an oil cooler. Okay, fair enough. Got a nice oil cooler. But if you go in, and I don't know if you can see in the back. Oh yeah, you can. You can. Look at that hole. That hole in the back is the air intake. Now notice, that is a straight shot. A straight shot of air. This aircraft gets serious ram air performance boost. I'm gonna guess, I'm just guessing here, but I actually haven't measured. AccuSim automatically does this based on the cowling. But I think you're gonna get an extra 1.5, maybe 2 inches of manifold pressure. It's exponential as it increases. This is why this airplane makes such great manifold pressure and power up higher, because it's making more manifold pressure than the Comanche. Now, I love the Comanche. It gets absolutely no ram air benefit. I don't understand why anybody would not take advantage of that. But having said that, there is a reason why you put it on an aircraft like this, because like I said, it is exponential, meaning it's not a linear curve. So you might get, I'm just gonna guess here, you might get a 1/2 inch at 100 miles an hour, a 1/2 inch of air pressure, manifold pressure. You might find it's 2 inches at 200 miles an hour. See what I'm saying? So all the gains really get picked up really high. So, you wouldn't really pick up a lot. Maybe you'd pick up not even an inch over there. But that is an aspect of this airplane because it's free power. It's a form of turbocharging, free turbocharging. And when I say free, it's free. It's coming in, aside from the fact that technically there'd be some drag, I suppose, but it's as free as you're gonna get. So the other thing about the Aerostar, because it's a mid-wing design, it has the very long landing gear. I like stout landing gear. I love the short stout landing gear because it's just easier to make a strong gear. So this gear is seriously beefed up, but it is a long landing gear. It's beautiful landing gear, but that's another thing that kind of stands out with the aircraft is that it just has that really long landing gear stance. And just let's see, some other things that come to mind that are characteristic of it. You've got that pitot tube on the top that's kind of cool. And when we replaced the tail, we went with those blade nav antennas, which are they look nicer and are more aerodynamic than the cat whiskers. And you notice in the back there's also an air intake, a fresh air intake that feeds the heat in the back. And that's a very efficient place to put that intake. And you have another air intake, which is also extremely efficient. Look at that, right on the nose. A NACA air intake. It's beautiful. The other thing that stands out the Aerostar is very thin, small wings. This aircraft is made to fly at low and mid altitude. So it'll fly fine at 12,000 feet. It'll fly higher than 12,000 feet, but it really loves like 7 to 9. It loves that altitude. It's very fast. Let's see, another thing comes to mind is a nice big tail. The tail is a lot of hangers that tail will not fit under, which obviously is not a benefit, but that's just because it's got that big tail. A couple things we're going to be doing here. Once we get this aircraft cleaned up, I'm going to go around and be very meticulous about addressing little bumps and things hanging out. Like, for example, this right here always catches my eye. See that? You might think, oh, that's not a big deal. But it actually is a big deal. Something like that can take off a couple knots. And speed, it adds up. And you think, how could that do that? It's so flimsy. How can that slow this big machine down a couple knots? Well, it's just the air comes flying off this and it creates a vortice and it creates drag. So these are things, I think we're just a little slower than book right now. Very pleased with the performance. But I think we're gonna get to book speed once we do all of our aerodynamic cleanup. And that goes for everything. But I think that's all I have for just sort of a nice little walk around. I know people have seen the cockpit before, but twin engine cockpits is something very nostalgic about it for me. Seeing twin engine aircraft flying over my house when I was a kid. I just put the iPad mount up here and trying to work with that. Before the mount was, hold on a sec. The mount was mounted underneath the yoke. And it wasn't so bad, but it was a little cramped. I think that's going to be better. And we're going to clean up the interior quite a bit and condition it. I've got to put the back panel on that. I'm just leaving it off because we're going to do some maintenance next week, and then Casey wants to look at it, just to leave it open. I love these curtains in here. Just something about it. It's always comfortable. Very nice ventilation back there. That fan's very powerful. When you put it on, it blows air right through the whole cabin. So when it's hot on, or it's hot out, and you get in this aircraft, that fan goes on. It's a nice relief. And of course, we talked about those windows. Upward facing windows are outstanding. I do have to put something to cover them because when the sun is coming through, it's not so outstanding when you don't want the sun in your eyes. Another thing I'd like to consider changing is these as well are nice, but they're not, sometimes it just doesn't block the sun enough. So I might darken them a little bit more. Other than that, I'm just trying to think. A lot of cosmetic stuff. I mean, it looks like an old World War II aircraft. Extremely high quality components. That's a Century 4 autopilot. This thing will shoot and approach. Buttons they look like they've been beaten to hell, and they have, but they work great. There's no time you press a button and it's not finicky. It's just extreme. This is what you call aircraft quality. Today, I'm not really sure what that means with how great automobile quality has become, but this is clearly aircraft quality stuff because Look at these buttons. They've just been lasting for decades and decades. These buttons, decades and decades. Switches. They just keep going, and levers. The yoke feels outstanding. The Aerostar has push tubes. The tubes actually look like this. So there aren't cables in this thing, and there's nothing to adjust. They're tubes. They're tubes that are connected. You just got to keep them lubed. And what those tubes do are give you the most incredible positive control. I mean, this is direct. There's no slop. There's no like click, click, click. There's none of that, any kind of stretch or anything in flying this Aerostar. It's truly spectacular from a feel point of view. And we're going to do everything we can to capture all of this stuff with AccuSim. Other than that, we have a bunch of little minor squawks that we're going to get to. One is a very slow leak in that compass. It's so those are like, I gotta fill it like once a year, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's due for its filling. So, and that's pretty much it. I don't know if I can think of anything else to say about the plane. 3-blade props, ramp appeal. I think people who fly AccuSim and have our 182 understand that 3-blade props really have only 2 purposes in aviation that I know of. I could be wrong. Somebody else could correct me. It's for very heavy loading, like cargo planes with multiple blades, because they've got to get off the ground as quickly as possible at the expense of cruise speed, and also very high altitude performance. You go very high, you need a lot of blade if you're in that thin air. And the third also might be ground clearance. If you can't put a big blade on it, where you put more blades and you make them smaller, and they can be a little quieter. But there's a performance hint with a 3-blade. If you put 2 blades on this airplane, it would pick up some speed. I'm not sure how much. Speed typically doesn't come with horsepower, it comes with drag. I mean, horsepower plays a part, but drag is the major decider of how fast an aircraft is going to be. If you're looking to make an aircraft fast, you typically don't say, oh, strap on more power. No, you go around and you start cleaning it up. Just a beautiful specimen of an airplane. It's gorgeous. Can't believe I have an airplane that's big enough that you can actually walk underneath the tail. It just feels like a little airliner almost. It's such a beauty. Trim tab. This plane flies very true and straight. You can tell because that tab is straight. That tab was bent. It means somebody bent it to correct a tendency of it to roll. Other than that, cowlings are very easy to take on and off. That's a big plus. I love the Comanche, but probably the most difficult cowling to take off. Talking about an hour to put that thing back on. Yeah, that's not fun, uncowling the Comanche. This is like zip, 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 unscrew it, pop it off, you're good to go. And that's it. I'm sure there'll be more to come. I went up and I took a flight yesterday. I might include it at the end of this video. I might put it on another one. It shows the slow flight characteristics of this plane that are outstanding. Just outstanding. The airplane has had a bad reputation. It's not the airplane's fault. I just cannot stress that enough. It's not the airplane's fault. It's simply pilots flying it that really are not taking it as seriously and being as prepared as they need to be to fly an aircraft like this. This is not a kick the tires and fly airplane. No twins are. You really got to take it seriously. You got to slow down. Checklists, 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 checklists with a plane like this. There's no just jumping in, firing up, and flying it. I mean, sure, you can do that, but that's not a smart way to fly this plane. You can never let the Aerostar get ahead of you. That's where you got to be. Just calm, take your time, don't be rushed. If you're rushed, you feel rushed, don't fly. Getting ready to fly the Comanche back. Beautiful Comanche. very different experience flying the Comanche. Comanche is it's more relaxing to fly because there's less to do. As I've shown the video, the cargo loading capacity of the Comanche is outstanding. But what a beauty, and the engine on the way over here just reminded again of just how beautiful the engine sounds. It just purrs. Feels like it's going to run another 2,000 hours. And of course that amazing prop. That is a big part of the engine feel and sound, is the prop. Oh, that's Kurt. I recognize him. Mechanic. Kurt is an awesome mechanic, works at Robertson. He's the one who replaced the tail on the Aerostar years back. And I'm actually glad he did it when he took the tail off. He said, geez, you got a lot of stuff in there from all the years, and he did a great job. And so much of the plane is now brand new. It's been through a lot.